Hey there, guys, and welcome back to the Blaze TV podcast. It's Ed Kimberley and Stu Coles, as always. And our guest on the first edition of what's hopefully going to be a good summer of these, a guy who needs no introduction, Blaze head coach Danny Stewart. Danny, hey, thank you so much for putting a little bit of time aside to do this. It's good to see you. It feels like it was a long time ago, but it wasn't all that long ago since we saw you last.
Yeah, no, are you talking on Zoom or just in person?
No, in real life, in the flesh, in general, yeah.
Just over a week ago. So obviously, I don't know if my mood's any better now than it was then when I saw you last, but obviously it was after that Saturday night, right? That's what we're talking about. Yeah. So, no, it's time flies by, and then next thing you know, you're heading into next season. So, things will go quick.
And I think during this, we'll probably just touch on next season. I know it again feels like a long time away, but summer's going to shoot by. But I think we talk a little bit about last season to start off this thing. And then towards the end, we've got some signing news as well, which is nice to kick the summer off with. So we'll talk about that a little bit further down the line. But if anybody's watched one of the post-game interviews that we do, I always ask to start those interviews the same way. And I figured I'd start this in a similar vein. So, Coach, tell us your thoughts on that season.
Well, it's on the season. I mean, I'll tell you what, I think at the end of most seasons, most coaches will say, you endure a lot of ups and downs. But I'd certainly say, right from the start of the season, we got off to a great start. I think it was 6 or 7-0. And then I got to say there was a lot more ups than there was downs. We had our exit meetings with our players this past week, and all just great feedback from them and their experience and what they felt about the club, and their experience here and the group of guys that we had. And I think probably, you're not always going to be at your best most nights, but I think consistency is another thing you talk about all the time as a coach. But that I don't think that was ever something we brought up in our interviews. We had good consistency all year. We didn't really have bad back-to-back nights very often, if at all. And like I said, you're not always going to be at your best, but really there's probably 4 games where we were bad this year out of all the games that we played, whatever we ended up doing in the end. And so it's in that sense, very good season, 72 points. I know everyone gets caught up in the standings and where you are. And don't get me wrong, don't take it out of context, but, we always want to finish as high as possible and challenge. But, to get 72 points, it takes a lot of consistency. And it was a tough league this year, a lot of good teams, top teams, a couple of them in Belfast and Guildford had special years. And to achieve 72 points is a great accomplishment, but at the same time, within those 4 games that we were bad, unfortunately, the 2 of them were in the first leg of the Challenge Cup and playoffs, and I think that's the two games, and that's where we'll reflect back and wish that we had put in better performances. And but I think overall, as a whole, as the summer goes on, you can reflect a little bit more and kind of get away from the season. I think, all in all, it was a fantastic season.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly felt like calling their games week in, week out. It certainly felt like a special group. And when you look last year, in the 21-22 season, that was a pretty good team there too, Coach, right? And, it came right down to the wire. And if I remember rightly, beginning of March, goals seemed to be pretty tough to come by, and we ended up finishing 8th. Whereas, this season we were able to keep up with that little pack that was forming from ourselves upwards. And like you said, aside from those couple of stinky games in the Challenge Cup quarterfinal first game and then in the playoffs, we got stuff done. We got it done night in, night out. It was a real good season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I'll always defend my guys if I feel we had a good group. And I think 2021, although we finished 8th, we were 4 points out of 4th.
Yeah.
In terms of points, did we do as well as we wanted to? No, but man, we endured a lot. And that's not excuses. That's just reality. We lost Thompson, our top line center, right early on in the season. And, we weren't able to replace him. We had that stretch of 2-3 weeks where I think we had 5 or 6 suspensions. on top of guys having COVID already. You know, we had 2 flu bugs that ripped through us, and I, you know, coming out one end. And you know what I mean? Like it just, and we had injuries. I mean, there was nights, I remember the one game at home against Belfast where we played with, I think we played with 14 or 15 guys, and 6 or 7 of them were NIHL players. You know, we had guys that had never played at the, you know, it was just one of those seasons. And we knew that was going to be the case with COVID and things like that. We just weren't prepared for all the additional things that propped up. But I think we handled it well. And, you know, maybe other than, again, when you look back, you take out moments and maybe stretches that maybe make a difference. And towards the end there, I think we lost, you know, 3-4 games down the stretch there, and it made the difference. We were in 4th and dropped 8th, but guys picked themselves up and played fantastic hockey against Belfast in the playoffs, and we played well enough to beat them. And it came down to inches. We were 1 save away in the shootout from going through, and Motter looked like he was right onto it and made the right decision. And it just, you know, they flubbed it and it trickled past the line and gave them another lifeline. And that's what happens. That's sport. But yeah, I think you know, over the past several seasons, been really happy, really thrilled. I think the last 4 full seasons were, I think, 5th in terms of the amount of points accumulated over those 4 seasons. So, you know, I think we're competing night in, night out. You know, we've seemed to have created a little bit more of an identity than maybe first couple of years here, and created a culture. And, you know, the expectations will be the same next season. Yeah,
you must feel those forward steps, if you like. And I think, you know, this group, you know, the guys that keep coming back, that core, it looks like that's what's happening. And, you know, one thing that I think, you know, maybe we were a little bit negative on a minute ago was the Challenge Cup quarterfinal first game, but we were top of the group. And, you know, I don't know how the draw worked this year. I don't remember. I remember being a little bit hurt about it when it came out, because at the time Guildford came 3rd in the group, but they were top of the league at the time. So I mean, that was just a tough break, but that was a really good achievement to come top of that group when you consider how far Cardiff went this year, how well Guildford did this year. So you must be actually looking back quite proud of that.
I was proud of that, but at the end of the day, you know, you want to get to finals, you want to have the ability to play for trophies, and you know, we went into Guildford and we just, and by the way, credit to them. I mean, I'm not taking anything away. They had a special year. They were a great team this year, and you know, I think that's all it takes. You know, when the team's that good, if you're not at your best, and especially on the road, you know, that's what happens. And you know, again, we came back then the second leg, and we battled back and we showed some fight, just like we did in playoffs, and played good hockey, but just obviously had to, you know, pull the goalie and things like that just to try and come back. But you know, it's just, you know, I think I can speak for the players themselves. You know, they've all spoke about it to me, and you know, I think those 2 legs will be where we feel like we let ourselves down and let the group down, and you know, that's the difference between maybe a trophy and not.
And I guess that's something to, I guess, put in the lessons learned book, right? For the guys that are coming back, and I guess, you know, you're quite self-reflective, Stewie, I know, so you'll be thinking back about, you know, what could have been done differently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, you have to learn from it. And the short formats of our league and the Challenge Cup and the playoffs, you know, you have to embrace the moment and you have to perform in the moment. You know, it's anything can happen. You know, you've seen that. Nobody expected Guildford to lose in the quarterfinals after the season they had. And you know, you have to perform in the moment, and you got to have, you know, special performances from most guys. And if you're going to go all the way, so, you know, we just didn't quite do it. And, you know, we're obviously looking to build on what we did as a whole this season and the past several seasons, and, you know, and retool and try to go again.
Stu, do you want to tap in?
Yeah, maybe we can talk about some sort of specifics. And I think if we go back to sort of where we were talking at the start of the season, you were sort of saying, you know, we wanted to address the power play. You wanted to look to find different ways to score, maybe not be so one trick. And, you know, power play was riding top of the charts for a lot of the season, high in the league. Do you feel that you achieved that with your power play over the course of the season? Did you get the improvement that you were looking for?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think we, possibly sputtered a little bit down the stretch there on the power play, but it was very difficult. I think we had a stretch of like 9 games down, like at the very end of the season there, where we only had like 13 power plays. It was like 2 weekends in a row where we had 3 power plays, I think, total. And when you're only getting 1, maybe 2 opportunities a night, it's very tough to create success, and you got to make the most of it. And but I think as a whole, I think we ended up just under 23%, which was, really good. And early on in the season to the middle of the season, won us a lot of hockey games, and help build that confidence as a whole to allow us to win hockey games. And so it helped us get to the point that when it wasn't maybe clicking, that we were still finding other ways to win. And you mentioned other ways to score. I mean, our production from our back end was phenomenal this year. I think we led the league in goals by defensemen, and our depth too. We had 3 lines that could score. So it's definitely a lot more positive signs from this group for sure.
And it extended it away from the special teams, didn't it? Because the Blaze were able to get a lot of goals this year, 3rd in the league in total. So putting the puck in the back of the net generally this year was not a problem.
Yeah, no, it was. And I think that was, from a balanced attack, like I said, you're getting contributions from absolutely everyone. I mean, even Nathan Ripley, had 5 goals for us in limited action. And, I know Forbesy, was snake bit for quite a while there, but down the stretch, he got 3. So, you had contributions from absolutely everyone. And sometimes that's what you need to compete in the top half of the table of this league. And, it just gets better every year. And, the top teams, they seem to be retooling every year. And then they, they're able to bring back a big core of successful teams. And that's where I think, this year as well, again, we had a pretty massive retool in terms of personnel. And, for these guys right off the bat, they just clicked. And I think that's a testament to them and their commitment and, kind of settling in quickly and finding success early too. That's so key. It's so underestimated. You come in as a new group and, you have a tough time, all of a sudden the habits turn the other way and the confidence isn't there. But we found that success early in the cup and through the league and, just carried it through.
With that confidence, do you think the team really thrived on that success and built upon it over the course of the season? Because you said earlier that they were consistent. Do you think that was because they were getting the results and the buy-in and it just sort of snowballed from there? Because there was only really sort of one skid around sort of Christmas and New Year where there was a few losses in a row. But even then, like you said, performances were perhaps still good, just the results weren't coming.
Yeah, I mean, confidence is earned, right? It's not something that you can guys don't just show up and you tell them they're good and they're confident, right? They have to go out and perform and win games and gain that confidence and earn it. And then it stems from that. But yeah, I think, and like I said, we had such a good group of guys too, guys that were willing to play for one another, and us coaches always talk about it. And most seasons you say, you had a group that'll play together, but this one really, they really cared about each other off the ice. They really cared about, one another having success. They were happy for each other. There was no, jealousy. There was no, there was competition within practice, but not in terms of success. And, no one was really concerned about who got credit for anything. We just wanted to win hockey games. And at the end of the day, that was, I think, a big reason for us winning games and having success. And I think, hugely disappointing for all those guys at the end of the year because they all cared about each other. So they weren't just, upset, for themselves. They were upset for each and one of those guys in the dressing room.
How much of that do you think is them as a personality, and how much of that do you think that is perhaps your approach to coaching? You've often said you don't like first, second, third lines. You play as a team and everybody gets their minutes accordingly. And if you look at the sort of like the time on ice stats for the team, it was pretty even up and down the lineup. Yes, there were a few more higher and lower, but generally there was a lot of consistency there. Everyone was playing the same. Everyone was contributing. Is that you as a coach, them as a player, or a combination of the two?
I think probably a combination of the two. I think it starts with recruiting. It takes a while to find your feet recruiting in this league. And, I did it a lot in Fife, and it gave me a lot of good experience. Coventry, and then but when you're one-man band at the start, they're recruiting, and we made some mistakes in terms of the type of people that maybe we brought in. So it stems from that, and you got to have good people, and good people doesn't always mean the nicest guys and nicest people. I mean, you can be a competitor, you can be hard on other people, but you can still have a good heart and be a good person. But it starts there, and then like I said, these guys just click. There's an element of luck to it too, Stu. There's an element of luck for sure. These guys came in, and our leadership group did a good job, and they just all got along from day one. But yeah, I think us as a club, we've never really been able to kind of get 4 full lines going consistently, partly due to budget, and partly due to our decisions, because of the budget, and you don't want to spread yourself too thin, and if you are going to roll 3 lines or 10 or 11 forwards, you need to spread the minutes, and obviously naturally, one line maybe or a top pairing D-man are going to have 3-4 extra minutes a night than the rest of the guys. But you're right, as a whole, even our third line was playing 16-17 minutes a night and getting good minutes and time on the power play and the PK. And I think you have to do that if you're not going to roll the 4 full blocks, because it's just a long season and your guys just get too fatigued.
You mentioned the PK there. That was probably statistically maybe one of the lower points of the season, the PK finishing, sort of 10th in the league. But certainly myself and Ed have had this conversation. It didn't feel like a 10th. And
yeah,
was that partly because of the fact that they didn't get to do many penalty kills, because the Blaze were the least penalized team in the league?
I don't know quite, but we're still scratching our head a little bit. There was quite a few, unlucky goals, but without making excuses, I mean, I think the difference between 10th and 1st was like 5%. Power plays are a lot tougher to defend these days. Back in the early 2000s, you had teams with 92-93%, and you look at the NHL, you got the Oilers are the extreme in power play. They 30 broke the record, but your top PKs are really if you're hovering around 85%, you got a very, very high end PK. And in terms of us, yeah, we just seemed to, down the stretch, we didn't feel like it completely cost us games. But we weren't killing a lot, but we just seemed those nights where we were only killing 2 or 3, we seemed to just give up one off a bad bounce or a broken play or something like that. And then there was one stretch during the year, I think we had a streak of like 45 to 50 kills in a row, and we were really rolling. And but yeah, it just kind of sputtered a little bit, and we just seemed to fail to get that job done. I think we had one really bad weekend. I can't remember who we were playing, but I remember Kino and I talking about it at the time, where we gave up, I think, 4 or 5 goals on like 9 or 10 attempts. And I think it happened a couple of years ago. And when that happens, it really drops your percentage, when you have those nightmare weekends. So I think as a whole, our PK wasn't awful, but certainly an area that we're gonna want to improve next season.
Ed.
Oh yeah. So I think if we were going to talk about individual players, we could be here all night, on a 20 to 22 man roster. So I don't really want to do that, but I kind of want to talk about some combinations of players, because, I think when you look at some of the combos that stayed together for large portions of the year, you saw a lot of success. So, I mean, our top D pair with Nathaniel and Brady, I mean, that was one of the top D pairs in the league. By, Nathaniel Halbert ended up in the All-Star team and the second All-Star team, despite missing a whole bunch of games with injury. He was a point a game. He played in every scenario, and so did Brady. And they seemed to complement each other really nicely. And that combination was so dependable for the Blaze last year, wasn't it, Coach?
Yeah, it was. And they like you said, they both played in all situations. They clearly gave us that top pairing, but I don't think a top pairing can have the success that they had without the rest of the group being as solid. Or the other four just came, and then Forbesy when we needed them as well. They were all great for us back there. Lish came in, and just what a worker. Head down, does his job, and just played great hockey for us. Kukali came in without, from not playing last season, and, just settled right in and, found his niche, and, great D-man. And then, Johnson, great two-way defenseman, gave us another, option on the power play. And then Clem as well. Clem had a great year, and found himself on the power play large chunks of the season, especially when Halvey went down and for those 2 months. And you need that depth. You need that depth to be successful as a team, to defend well, but also for, when you have depth like that, the individuals benefit from it. And, when Halvey and Norrish needed that extra breather, we had no hesitation to stick Johnson and Kukali out there, or Lish and Clem, and even Forbesy when he got settled in on the back end as well.
Yeah, no, it was a good defensive group to call, like you say, top to bottom. Forwards, I mean, there was a little bit of turbulence there. We had a guy leave, we had some injuries and whatnot, so things kind of got shuffled around. But two players that seemed to gravitate as a pair of wingers, and they kind of stuck around together, were Talberg and Curran. And coincidentally, they ended up our top point scorers between them. What was it about them that just clicked, Coach? Because they just seemed to be a danger every time they stepped foot on the ice.
Yeah, they had a good connection. Sometimes it's just, sometimes you, as a coach, you think the way guys play, they will naturally, find a rhythm together. But I wasn't sure about those two, because, Tally's more of a puck possession type guy down low, and, he just finds that open ice. And whereas Curry's more off the rush, you know what I mean, spring when we get possession of the puck and attack off entries. So but yeah, they were a good combo. They ended up being a good combo no matter who we had in the middle. I mean, early on in the season, they were really good with Radek when the three of them were together, and then there was a small time where Quincy was in between them, and then Franny in between them, and then at the end of the year there, I think we had Kirky there in the last game with them. But yeah, they just seemed to click. Tally was kind of a hard area puck possession type guy, and Curry would just kind of read off him, and Tally was good at putting pucks into areas for him, and and he'd obviously Curry attacking the net a lot, you know what I mean, off the rush. And Tally, I think, recognized that he's a smart player, so he'd go to those hard areas and benefit from that as well. So but again, two good guys that were unselfish in how they play, and worked with one another very well. Yeah,
and I guess finally in combinations, and it was a combination that came a little bit later, was in terms of net minding, because I mean we were one of the only teams to run one import for long stretches of the season in Pav, and Miklos came available when his season ended a little bit earlier than I think they'd have liked. But you could just see it, the weight lifted from Pav. A heck of a lot of games he had to go through in succession. And then both guys competing a little bit with each other, able to rest a night. You had great net minding down the stretch, didn't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was a nice luxury to have. We're not used to that in Coventry, but they were great. Miklos came in and right away, and had that little stretch on the road, which we I think played him in Belfast there, and he won in Belfast, and then won in Guildford, and then won in Cardiff, and then in Nottingham. It was just three really tough buildings. And I think we came back with Pav in Nottingham, and then he went Fife at home, and then he shut Fife out, and then came back and won in Nottingham. So it was really good. Decision was tough coming into playoffs who we were going to go with, and I had an idea that we might be in a situation where we split them. It wasn't fully our decision to do that before the playoffs, but we decided to go with Pav because Pav had been, I think he was 5-2-2 against Cardiff during the year, and really played well against them. And the 2 previous games at home against them, I mean, he shut them out for almost 120 minutes straight.
Yeah.
We 6-0, and then we were beaten 4-0. And, other than maybe a quick switch off moment and a sky dome bounce there, he could have possibly had another one. So, and that game, that first leg, you can't put anything really on Pav. We weren't good enough in front of them. So, nothing to fault there. And we just felt after, trailing 5-1, a change in personnel might just kind of change the mindset a little bit. And, Miklos was there fresh, and it was a heavy game for Pav. There was a lot of zone gains, a lot of grade A chances we gave up. And, obviously it was the right decision, as Miklos, played really well on the Sunday.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, we'll start to talk about next season, I think, in the coming little minutes of this. But I think everyone wants me to ask you here, what are you going to do with him, with goalies next year? Are you going to try and run 2 imports, or is it just a case of what's in the budget and not wanting to, I guess, get lesser net minding purely because you want to run 2? Is that fair?
Idea is to try. Absolutely. I think we've seen the benefit of it. In terms of rest for the goalies, it's a lot to ask a starting goalie to come in and play. The league gets faster and faster, and with the travel in our league and playing back-to-back nights, it's a grind. It was a grind for every starter that we've had here, and we've seen the benefits of it, and a little healthy competition never hurts as well. So yeah, no, the intention is to try and set ourselves up so that we've got 2 import goalies that can run on a night, and then have Will involved as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Coach. Stu?
Yeah. And with that sort of the future, one of the sort of like the big talking points towards the end of the season has been Ross Venus and his decision to effectively retire from the Elite League and move on. It certainly looked, before that announcement was made, that his play, the intensity of his play picked up over the last sort of month or so of the season. And it was clear that he was trying to leave absolutely everything out there. But what words could you talk to about him around his service to the club?
Yeah, tremendous. I mean, he's, V, everyone knows how young he was when he first came through with Tomo, and I think it was the first couple of years there were just strictly development, more in practices and stuff like that. I mean, he was 17-year-old kid playing in a, pro league, and that's, not heard of very often. So, and then, I made a joke to him. I think he's the only player in Blaze history that's played for every single coach in the team's existence. Right. So, and then as he got older, he kind of got pegged as that kind of 3rd, 4th line defensive type forward that, was really good on the PK, and he got better with that through the years. And I remember the first year I inherited him that he was similar to that. But as the years went on, we started to see a little bit more, whether it was through confidence or experience. He just seemed to start showing a little bit more offensive ability, and we gave him a little bit more freedom with that as well. And, I think as the import levels went up and the depth of our team was maybe a little bit better, he was finding himself playing with better guys on a nightly basis, and through that he was getting more points and getting even some power play time, and V was fully capable. There was times he was on the PP and large parts this season that he wasn't, but I think we were probably at some point we probably could have rolled 3 units, if I'm being honest. The end of the year, V wasn't on it, JD wasn't on the power play, no Clem on the power play, and they're all guys that have been or are capable of. So, but V was, he was the last 2-3 years, he's really, I want to say, let's I'm not saying Scott Conway's not a Brit, but let's just kind of focus on British born players. I think he was or raised in Britain. He was 2nd or 3rd top scoring Brit in the last several seasons. So obviously proves that he can play both ways. And Yeah, he did have a little bit more bite to him. I think he enjoyed playing with Yellow too. Those guys hounded me for a long time to play with each other. And when Yellow came back from his injury, we were trying to find some combos to maybe at the time create a little bit of a spark. And as I think we had sputtered for a couple games, and they clicked right away and played well. And I think that kind of brought him some confidence as well, playing with Yellow. And he's, you could tell he wanted to go out, successful and win something. So as would most guys, you'd like to think, but V put in a lot of service for the club, and I hate to see him go, but you got to understand these things. He's been here a long time, and wish him and Gallo the best of luck for sure.
Yeah, started off with a bang. He came in to the Blaze with 13 points in his first season as a 16-year-old, which is a phenomenal contribution to get that ice time. Yeah, 6 + 7 in his first season with the Blaze, and then
I should probably know that, eh? Yeah. That's a lot. That's 12 years.
That's why we have elite prospects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's a long-standing contribution, and I think you're right that the development across his game, he's become a really well-rounded player that can contribute in all situations, which then obviously creates a headache for you, because how do you address that gap? Because there isn't a Ross Venus waiting in the wings. There are players who could potentially be a Ross Venus.
Yeah, I don't think it's tough. It'll be tough. Yeah, in terms of British players that are there ready to replace V, I don't think you're going to find that. There's a few coming up, and maybe a couple in the NHL that with some time could get to that level. But at the same time, it's tricky, because if you're going to sign a guy to come in and kind of develop and maybe start as your 10th, 11th forward, some of these guys can make better money down being the top guy on their team in the NHL, and then working on top of that, because there's not as much commitment in terms of practice times and morning practice times. And so it's tough to convince those guys that may be an option to even leave their places in the NHL. So yeah, very difficult to do. So we got to just, We've like I said, we've met through everyone. We've got Rips. Rips is a guy that showed some improvement this year, and hopefully be able to retain him and work with him for another year and see if he can progress as well. So it's we'll see how the summer unfolds here and see what we need to do to try our best to replace him.
And if we're maybe thinking of British players and extending that definition of British players back to those who can play for Great Britain, not just those who were perhaps born in Great Britain. The club has got a really good representation at GB this year. Like the Ice Hockey Challenge earlier in the year, and now, sort of like the long list for the squad coming up in the World Championships. Those players have had a good season, and it's been recognised.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Are you talking about the guys that we have representing? Yeah.
Yeah, the Blaze.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, it was, Curry and Halby had really, really good seasons. I mean, Curry's had his best season for us this year, and he's just gotten better every year and earned his spot there, hopefully. And, they're on the long list, but, I'm hopeful that they all can make it. Obviously being their coach, I think they're all deserving to make the final roster, but I don't make those decisions, and I'm not sitting there with their coaches and seeing what they have planned in terms of their lineup and depth and where they want to put guys. So nobody knows better than those guys involved. But yeah, I think Clem, another great year. I think one thing with Clem this year, he just showed a little bit more maturity, I think, and in those maybe high pressure games, and down the stretch, he played some of his, I'd say, more solid hockey, both ways. And We spoke about Curry and Halby having kind of breakout seasons, and, V having a great year again, and, Headley being in there again. I know we didn't see Headley as much this year, but he was still part of our team for a large part of the season. Not as much down the stretch as we brought Miklos in, and obviously Heads was battling for a championship down at the NIHL level with Milton Keynes. So we didn't want to put them in a bad position either by taking him. So it's well deserved. Like I say, every year it's these guys keep getting better and better, and it's an honor for these guys to represent their country. And I know there's some people across the country that maybe are on the fence with dual nationality guys, playing on GB, but like Halby's born in Nottingham. His whole family was kind of, born and raised here. And so, I think there's an argument both ways.
I completely agree. I think from a personal perspective, I think if you have the passport and you want to play, brilliant. If you certainly from our involvement with some of the GB side of things, I think you get a feeling that the guys really are committed to the program, and that's all you can ask for from anyone, regardless of where they came from, and that's all you can ask.
I think that the GB coaches and the group that they have there do a good job at the new guys coming in and helping them settle in, and from what word of mouth and and getting them to buy into what they're playing for. And I mean, I can't think of anything more that you'd want to buy into than playing for your country. I mean, I would have loved the opportunity to play for Canada, but I don't think on their depth roster, if I'm being honest. So I was maybe on the top 100 teams, maybe, if I would have made that, maybe, but a little tougher in Canada. But these guys do a great job, and GB guys across the league, like Richardson and John O'Phillips and Matty Myers, those guys that are kind of older at the end of the rope, and the leaders of that program have done a great job as well.
Yeah, and without it being too GB heavy, he says wearing the tracksuit shirt here. I think that argument about dual nationality, you have to come and serve some time in the Elite League. You have to give back to that hockey community in general. I think that's very important, rather than just having that passport, playing your whole career in the East Coast and popping over every now and then. That doesn't seem right. So I think we've probably got quite a good balance. But moving back to GB, and I think we talked about Ross retiring, and I might be wrong here, Coach, but I think I saw on Garrett Johnston's social medias that I think he's played his last pro game. And I know you talked about him earlier. He was such a phenomenally underrated player for us. Really, really superb. And we'd like to see more of him, I think.
Yeah, no, he was really, really good for us. Two-way guy for sure. Very, very good defender, good skater, move the puck well, offensive ability. And I wasn't aware that he'd made it public. I'm not a big social media guy, but that's the case. He's made it public himself.
Yeah, I think I saw it on his Instagram. He put on a story.
Well, hopefully he has. If not, I can blame you for that.
Yes, you can. You can.
But yeah, no, he's a guy that's going to move on to life after hockey. Like I said, really, really good career. He was in that Toronto Marlies organization in the East Coast for quite a few years, and played for the Newfoundland Growlers, and very tough team to stick out with the amount of traffic that's up and down there, and even from the East guys coming down. So he came in and he was great for us. He gave us, like I said, he was, probably I know we had Halby and Norrie, but he was another guy that had the ability to be a top pairing defenseman as well, and gave us that depth, and I think made Halby and Norrie better as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the other people that's integral to making those guys in that dressing room better is Dale King. Your right-hand man. He often goes as a little bit of an unsung hero for this club, but I mean, he must have been, as always, completely indispensable this year.
Yeah, no, Kino does a good job. The reason he's here, this league's way too good for one coach, I think, to hold the reins. It's grown just every year since I've got here. So, Kino does a good job, and managing the guys back there on the back end during the games. And, a lot of prep goes into it. We make sure we're all on the same page of what we want in certain situations, but, the guy back there has to sometimes make decisions based on gut feeling on how guys are performing and, what situations are coming up. So, yeah, I mean, you always need somebody back there that's knowledgeable and has to make the right decisions at the right time, and that's key.
Yeah, for sure. Should we move on to some signing news then, Coach? Because I think we've talked about a couple of guys hanging them up. So I think it would be a good time to hand it over to you to announce our first signing of the summer.
Yeah, well, why don't you announce them and then I'll talk about them? Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it that way around.
Okay.
So returning from last year is import forward Tyler Kirkup. And as you know, Tyler came in, right at the end of the season after joining from Reading. I think he had, I think it was like 10 points in 11 regular season games and scored a goal in Cardiff in the playoff quarterfinal there. And, he hit the ground running, it seemed, Coach. I think maybe playing a pretty much full season in the East Coast helped, but he came with a splash. I think you pegged him as a center, but he played most of his time on the wing, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And is that how you see him next year, or are you just kind of leaving it to see how the cards fall?
Quite possibly. It's nice to have that versatility. One thing we learned from, a couple of the years that we've been here is, the depth up the middle is so key. And the years that we've been successful, we've had that. So, we played him in that final game on Sunday in Cardiff up the middle. That's where he was, in the East Coast League. And, certainly happy to get him back. He's a guy that just wanted something fresh from where he was in the East Coast League, and spoke to him about coming in and being maybe starting in a depth role, and just, having to maybe wait for his opportunity. And, we wanted to make sure we were covered down the stretch, and he came in, and then I think it was Yellow kind of hurt his knee in that Saturday game in Belfast. And then gave him the opportunity to play, and what a debut! 2 goals in a 3-1 win in Belfast is not very easy to do. I mean, had guys that haven't scored twice in Belfast over 2 or 3 seasons, right? So,
yeah.
And then he just continued playing well. Good, again, another smart, very smart. Plays in the hard areas, skilled as well, and he played well for us down the stretch and on the wing there, and eventually ended up getting some PP time, and, PK'd for us as well. And then played well right to the end, and even in playoffs, and, had a really good game up the middle. So having that depth and the ability to play him center and wing is vital. And it's, there's a lot of guys that claim they can play center, and then they come and that they don't, and they're better off on the wing. But to have a guy that can truly play both positions and feel comfortable and be effective is huge for your lineup.
And it might be a really dumb question to ask you, Coach, because you've signed him for another season, but he made quite an impact on you, didn't he, in the short time he was with us last season?
Yeah, he just, like I said, he was he just seemed to be a threat every game, and his work rate was great. He immediately improved us on the forecheck. He was good at kind of reading those situations and putting pucks in good areas and getting to them first, and getting us a lot more possession in the O-zone. And he just played a really good all-around game with good production. And, those are the types of guys that I feel that we need. He played with some grit, and played, like I said, played in the hard areas. And those are the guys you want down the stretch and in the playoffs. And he was really good for us.
Yeah, I guess we'll catch him on the podcast at some point. But Coventry clearly made quite a big impression on him in the short time too, because I think it'd be quite easy. We saw three or four guys last year come in a similar time, and I don't think we retained any of them. So I'm glad that seems like it was a two-way street.
Yeah, he loved this time here. He loved this time, and I think getting the opportunity as he did, but more importantly, making the most of that opportunity. And then, he kept them in the lineup, and, sometimes that can go the other way. It's such a fine line sometimes, maybe we're healthy right through to the end of the year, and he doesn't get that as much of an opportunity. And, doesn't enjoy maybe his experience here and moves on next year. But like I said, the injury allowed him to get himself into the lineup, and he sure took advantage of it and just played good hockey until the end of the year. And through that, we targeted him to get him signed up, and, gladly we got him done.
Yeah, good to hear. Stu, do you have anything else to throw Coach's way before we wrap things up?
No, I think we've taken enough of his time already, and he deserves a rest in the off season as much as he can possibly get.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll find some time here. We'll go. Like I said, I think immediately our goal is to really kind of prioritize our returning guys, to try and get as much of this team back as a core, and then see what we're left, and then build around that. But we find moments in the summer. My wife will disagree, but we find moments in the summer to kind of unwind and regroup, I guess, and reset. But that's it. Recruiting, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of due diligence and video and word of mouth and contacts. And so for every guy that you might sign, you've probably gone through 20 to 30 guys as well, and got no's or maybes, or I don't know yet. So a lot of work to be done. But I think one good thing is that the season finished on time this year. It wasn't a later season, and it looks like we may start a little bit later next season. So maybe an extended summer for us, which helps as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think just thinking about what you were saying there, Coach, when you have a good group like we had here, I think other teams pick up on that, don't they? So it can be sometimes hard to retain guys because they get that shiny option somewhere else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we, with our recruiting, we generally, we're not private about it. We're public about it. We've got to try and find those guys on value that we think are probably better than what they've been offered. And when they all work out for the most part, like they did this year, and have good seasons, then naturally they all want a little bit more, right? And you can't blame them for that. They've earned it, they've deserved it, but it makes it tough to bring all of them back on increased money. So there's always guys that retire, and there's always guys that maybe move on, and that's part of the business, that's part of sport. And but if we can do our best to retain as much of this core as possible, then it just sets us up to have success next year as well, and carry on, because it's I think for the most part we've had to retool most seasons. I think the only season that we didn't think we had to retool was after the COVID shortened season, when they we that was a great season as well. We were challenging for the league, and I think guys were on a high, and we had signed a lot of guys back, and then naturally the next season got canceled, and a lot of those guys ended up retiring in the off season and moving on. So it like I said, it would just be a huge help for the organization to have success and keep that core.
For sure. And Stewie, thanks again for putting this time aside. As always, really appreciate it. And I guess when we get to August time and things are looking a little bit more complete in that puzzle, we'll have to do something similar and talk about what group we've got going into the 2023-2024 season. So thanks again, Stewie, much appreciated. And guys, thanks again for tuning in on Blaze TV. I know it's been a little while, but hopefully we can get these going pretty regularly through the summer. So from me, Stu, Danny, from everybody in Blaze TV, take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy your summer, everyone. Hope to see you back in September, or actually, sorry, in July for my testimonial.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We probably should have touched on that a little bit more. Maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Like I said, I'm most excited about the guys that are coming back. That's what I'm excited for, just to see them on the ice again. And it'll be, a lot of good times back here as a player, and good moments and good groups of guys as well. So, a few guys I haven't seen for many, many years. So that's what I'm most excited about.
For sure. Well, we'll talk to you about that after the fact, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of stories and a lot of catching up with some of those guys.
Absolutely.
So once again, from everyone here on Blaze TV, it's been an honor and a privilege as always, and we'll catch you sometime soon. Take care.